Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to learn about the Daisy Rock Powerpuff Girls guitars. Oh man, this one's been a long time coming. These things are hard to find. But Daisy Rock was a guitar company founded in 2000 by musician Tish Siravallo. And you can check out this TED Talk that goes all over her entire history. But basically, she felt discriminated against as a female in the 80s being a guitar player. So she kind of got pushed around to a bunch of different jobs and then eventually made her way back to music. But later in her life, she had kids, and one of her children drew this daisy, and she just instantly saw, I should put a guitar neck on that design, put this little leaf headstock on it, and that birthed the whole Daisy Rock company. And her main goal was to make girl guitars. Guitars that were meant specifically for girls. They would be lightweight, have slim necks, and have attractive designs that would encourage a lot more women to want to pick up guitar. Now, you've probably ran into some of the more exotic shapes on eBay if you've ever been searching for a guitar. I mean, we're talking like ladybug shapes, stars, hearts, butterflies. And those guys usually have some sort of a reduced scale. They're just kind of meant to be pretty, kind of quirky guitars to attract younger girls to really want a guitar. Because, I mean, even my daughter just fell in love with this guitar because it's heart-shaped. But nowadays on Daisy Rock's website, I don't even see those exotic shapes available. They're mainly going after more viable shapes for guitars. I mean, there's one that kind of looks like a double cut Les Paul, a bunch of really bright colors. They also do bass guitars kind of stylized after the Ibanez, as well as acoustic guitars and ukuleles. And they're not particularly expensive, like $350 or less, depending on which one you're after. And they're not particularly like highly collectible guitars, except for a few of them, like the limited edition ones. They can fetch some crazy money. And overall, this company has a tie with Schecter. I believe they're made in the same factories as Schecter, because on some of these guitars, just like this one, it'll say, set up by Schecter USA. So they have some sort of an affiliation there. So now we get to talk about the Powerpuff Girls Heartbreaker guitar. That's what they called this body shape, the Heartbreaker. This is the 59 burst of the Daisy Rock world. These things are so rare and hard to find simply because of their origin story. So if you're not familiar, Powerpuff Girls is a cartoon show that's mainly aired on Cartoon Network. It first started in late 1998 by Hanna-Barbera, and then the original series was discontinued in 2005 from Cartoon Network. There was also a reboot in 2016, but we're not here to really talk about cartoons and opinions on that. But this guitar was birthed in mid-2002 for the summer release of the Powerpuff Girls movie. It was initially only available during a nationwide promotion during a very special Cartoon Fridays episode. So if you were one of those lucky people to pick one of those things up there, you have a really cool guitar that most people don't fully appreciate. You would have the option of two guitars. You could get the Powerpuff Girls Heartbreaker or the infinitely more versatile Mojo JoJo guitar. That's right, I've got the complete set here for us to document today. So let's talk about the Powerpuff Girls Heartbreaker guitar first. This is mainly a display piece, once again for younger children. It's only got one pickup, one control, but what makes this special is the heart shape, because this is a shape that you see all the time in the show. It's like the transitioning scenes. And as we talked about earlier, Daisy Rock already made this shape. The only thing that's different is the graphics. You've got Blossom right here with the stars, you've got Buttercup down here, and then you've got Bubbles right here. But this is a reduced scale length guitar, around 22.5 inches. And then you've got the Daisy Rock branding at the top of the headstock. It's kind of Fender-like in style in the fact that it uses a string tree without having any pitch to the neck. And it's just a fairly basic bolt-on neck guitar here. And the back says Powerpuff Girls on it. So this would mainly be attractive to the females that might win. But then there's Mojo JoJo. One of the evil villains within the show, one of many. This is an infinitely more versatile guitar because as you can see, two pickups, so neck and bridge instead of just a bridge pickup. You've got master volume and tone controls, your pickup selector, and this is a full scale instrument, 24 3/4 inches, and you're going to notice that this headstock actually has a pitch to it. So similar in style to a Gibson, it does not have to use a string tree. Now there's actually different variations on this one that you can get depending on the logo. Some of them just say Mojo JoJo up here, other ones have this branding. I'm not sure which came first, to be honest. But these guys are also bolt-on necks, but they were mainly meant to actually be played. I mean, the boys might prefer this one, or just somebody who likes Mojo JoJo. I mean, it's kind of an interesting design here, right? It's been rumored that 100 of each were made for the promotion, but they did briefly offer them for sale on Cartoon Network's website following that promotion, just because, you know, a lot of people are saying, how do I get that guitar? How do I get that guitar? So there's not a bunch of these things out there, but there's a little over 100 or so. And you're probably wondering, how much are these things worth in today's market? Well, the answer to that actually surprises me as well. I actually purchased these from the husband of the wife that was supposedly the 6th employee of Cartoon Network. She was given these guitars, and they've just always been on display in her home. And prior to my unboxing episode, most people didn't even realize these things had much value, because you would find them on like Goodwill auctions or an occasional reverb listing, anywhere between like 100 to 350 bucks. So I figured, yeah, I could probably get 500, that might be pushing it. But after my unboxing video, I saw 3 or 4 of these things show up because of that, with people asking 700 to 1,000 bucks. And to my surprise, they disappeared. So is this guitar really worth quite that much? Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't pay that much for this. So I'm definitely glad I was able to get them before, you know, I heavily inflated the prices accidentally. Well, that's just kind of how it goes with these guitars. Those Hello Kitty Stratocasters, they're pretty expensive, but they're plentiful. There's always 1 or 2 on the market. But these guys, they have the potential to be ridiculously expensive simply because they're a lot more rare. And as the generation of people that actually grew up with these shows, you know, starts to get disposable income, I mean, you could probably see somebody paying like really stupid money for these one day. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I just want to share these really cool guitars because I don't think enough people know about them. And it's kind of become a fad or a meme to play ironic guitars like the Hello Kitty Stratocaster, but everyone and their brother's mother has done the Hello Kitty Stratocaster guitars. But nobody on YouTube has done Powerpuff Girls or Mojo JoJo. So this is a first for YouTube. People actually get to see these things up close. So let's go ahead and throw these guys on the workbench and take an individual look at their parts and specs and then get a playing demo. Inside Mojo JoJo here, it's a pretty basic guitar. I mean, it's kind of like a Stratocaster-esque body style. I mean, you can definitely see that this is made under the parent brand of Schecter. It just looks kind of like one of those guitars, but slightly deformed. You know, you've got your head sticking out here. It's got the cape. It's one of those few times where an odd body shape actually kind of ends up working out here. But what I really like about the body design is the cape lines that they actually, you know, engraved within the body. I'm sure it just took a little router bit to go zzzz, and then they just painted it all black, and then they put this graphic over on top of it. So not that difficult to do, but it definitely helps, you know, make this design stand out so you understand what it is, instead of just this monkey head in all purple. It's the cape. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at our electronics here. I mean, this is your basic bottom of the barrel, like maybe $200, $300 guitar. I mean, these pickups, you can tell they've been wax potted, but I don't think these are going to be anything special. This is something you would likely have to upgrade if you wanted to gig this guitar. As far as the pickup routes go, they don't look too bad. In our bridge pickup cavity, it looks like we have some sort of marking right there, either 92 or some other language that I'm not familiar with. There's also a hole right there. I'm not quite sure why that would be there. So as far as modding potential, yeah, you're probably going to have to stick with humbuckers on this one. And the other pickup pretty much looks the exact same. As far as our pickup readings go, the bridge is really hot, 11.73. Our neck position is 11.67. Then we've got the middle just for fun here. We're about 6. So I guess we'll have to see how these things sound. But this is just a standard 3-way switch. It doesn't have like any fancy coil splitting or in-between positions. And then this is just a master volume and a master tone. And the bridge is pretty basic. It's just mounted to that with 5 screws, and you have individual saddles for each, so that's nice, and you adjust the intonation down here. And it is a string through model, and that's just your grounding wire. I'm not quite sure what wood the body's made of, but you can see some sort of a wood grain underneath a clear coat right there. I would have to guess it's like alder or basswood, something like that, but who knows? And overall, this thing's actually in pretty good shape. There's definitely some picking scratches and light wear and tear for this thing being displayed for almost 20 years. But there's like some sort of discoloration right here. I did my best to clean that off, but that really feels like it's underneath the finish. I'm not quite sure what that white smudging is. It's not like a sticker or anything, so maybe that's why this was given away to an employee instead of sold. Who knows? But our output jack is located on the side, and unfortunately, this screw no longer secures because it kind of got pulled out, probably because somebody was trying to take this out over the years of, plugging it in lately, and it just didn't hold. But moving on from the mystery body, we have what appears to be a rosewood fretboard. This was kind of before they were using a whole bunch of different stuff, so I'm sure it's something within the family of rosewood. And the neck itself is just maple. You can see that on the back, as well as inside the truss rod cavity. And it does indeed have the 24 3/4 inch scale length. And for some reason, they went with these star inlays. I mean, they look pretty okay. I'm not sure if Mojo JoJo is really associated with stars. Maybe it's the Powerpuff Girls punching them or something. But that's something that both of the Powerpuff Girl guitars have in common. Except for Mojo JoJo's are much larger, as you can see here. And the frets are at least medium jumbos, so they're definitely going to be playable and pretty good. I just polished those up and conditioned the fretboard, so we should be good to go on this one. Let's go ahead and capture the rest of the specs here, starting with our nut width, which is a plastic nut, 1.63, so that's a little bit skinny. Then by the 12th, what are we looking at? About 2. First fret neck depth, 0.8, that is pretty slim. And then 0.88 by the 12th. And that's definitely a C-shaped neck. It starts off a little bit narrow, then it gets a little bit wider, but still maintains that slim profile. Moving on to the backside, it's kind of interesting. Kind of looks like your standard shape here, but then you just have this weird lump. But I'm actually impressed to see there is a little bit of a carve down right here. They tried to make this the most comfortable guitar to play that they could, because they don't have any neck plate. They just have it bolted on with 4 screws right here. And they tried to round it off to, help you get to the upper fret access. It's really just this sharp cutaway here that kind of prevents you from playing all the way up. But here you can see the ferrules that the strings go through. Again, they didn't do the best job lining them up, but it doesn't really matter. And underneath the back control plate cavity here, that's some pretty primitive stuff here. Just some sort of a plastic toggle switch right here. Then you just got cheapy tiny little pots. Nothing too special in there. But that is rather unfortunate that they did the tiny pots. So in order to upgrade this, you would actually have to ream those holes a little bit larger if you wanted to do full-size CTS pots. So that's something to keep in mind. So if I were going to upgrade this guitar, I'd probably go with EMGs. That way I wouldn't have to do any permanent modifications to the guitar. I did find a small chip in the paint right here, so what I did is I just touched that up with my little lacquer pen. So that looks pretty good, but you got a Strat button down here at the butt end, and then one all the way up here at the top horn. And check out this cutaway right here. Super comfortable. But it's a full gloss finish, and I actually really like the neck on this one. You get a little bit of flame figuring right there, and just lots of nice wood grain, full gloss finish. It feels nice, and this is constructed with a scarf joint, and this one still has the Made in China sticker, with just your kind of standard cheapy tuners here. And it's a pretty chunky bodied guitar, but it only weighs 7 pounds, 3.1 ounces. So let's go ahead and check out the Powerpuff Girls guitar now. While Mojo JoJo might be the cooler and better guitar, I've been waiting for this moment forever. To take a look at the Powerpuff Girls heart guitar. Okay, so this part is just a little pickguard, so kind of like the Hello Kitty Stratocaster, how they just plaster her face sideways and use that as the pickguard. They've done the same thing with this little heart. And we've got this white EMG-esque looking pickup, but honestly it looks like the exact same thing that we saw in the Mojo JoJo, except for now we have a white cover over top of it. But you're going to notice it says 92 again. That's very strange. It's not signifying year because it was supposed to be 2002, so I don't know, maybe it's just a very, very sloppy writer, or it means something completely different. But you've got a pretty decent route right there, and then it's pink within that cavity. But it doesn't look like we can see through to the wood anywhere. Then you've got Bubbles, Buttercup, and Blossom over here with stars. I mean, the paint job is pretty much the only thing that makes this different from any other Heartbreaker model, besides maybe the star inlays. As far as the guitar itself goes, I mean, it's the same thing we had last time. It's just that regular bridge setup that's secured by 5 screws. I didn't bother messing around with this one because then I would have to adjust the intonation and all that. But this just has a master volume to it. There's not even a tone control here, so you can't do too much with this guitar. This one's mainly like a display piece. But it was cool to get to see under there anyways, so I'm not really sure what the body's made of. And our fretboard here, I mean, it's kind of rosewood-like in color, but there's a lot of wood grain right there, which sometimes it can have, but when it comes to these import models, you can never really be too sure. But since this was the early 2000s, it's likely rosewood. Now, I do want to correct myself a little bit. I think the stars are the same size, but they get a little bit smaller quicker on this one because, you know, the reduced scale length here, which looks like it's in the neighborhood of 22.5. So size comparison wise to a Pee Wee Les Paul, if you ever had one, it's not that different, but these guys I think are a little under a 20-inch scale length. So you're not going to quite have all the tuning and stability issues on this guitar as compared to one of these guys without running really heavy gauge strings. But if you are having issues, I would definitely suggest doing that. The rest of our specs here are nut width on this guy's 1.66 inches, and then by the 12th we're rocking 2.04. First fret neck depth 0.88, and what do we got here? 0.89, so yeah, they're fairly consistent on their C-shaped necks here that are thin. But here's what that looks like at the first fret and then the 12th fret over here. So a very consistent neck shape here. As far as the face of the headstock here, it's just that pink leaf-shaped design that they do. And this one's actually branded Daisy Rock, unlike that other one. And it utilizes a string tree system. I'm not really even 100% sure if it needs it, because this one doesn't have that neck pitch like we were talking about earlier. But it almost seems like it would be okay without one. I think they just put that on there for good measure. Because here's what that looks like all strung up without the string tree. I mean, there's enough of a break angle right there that it's not popping out when I do any types of bendings. I will say that it does feel a lot more comfortable to play though with it installed. So if you don't like string trees, I mean, it's possible to leave it off. Then it just looks like you have a little face that's going, "Ah!" But here's what that string tree looks like. And your truss rod's just located right in there if you need to use it. Moving on to the back, you've got the Powerpuff Girls logo. And in really fine print, it says that Cartoon Network owns that logo. But here's something really interesting back here. Maybe these guitars were actually made in different plants, because that is a full-sized pot straight from the factory. So if you wanted to upgrade this to a different pot, it would actually be pretty easy to do. However, the whole EMG thing might not actually work, because then you would need a battery, and I'm not sure if you would have enough room under there to put a battery or not, because there's definitely not enough room right there. But you probably could just take that white pickup cover if you want to keep the original look of this guitar and just put it over top of whatever pickup you want to put in there. So that's an option. And once again, I can't see any of the wood exposed anywhere, but there is a white wire that was never connected. Hopefully that's not going to cause us issues. But our output jack is located right here on the side. Our Strat button is a little bit off center right there, and then right here at the top. But take a look at this. They even took the time to carve that away to give you a little bit better upper fret access. And it says Daisy Rock right here on the neck plate. The maple neck on this one, very same feel to it, highly glossed over. You don't quite have as much wood grain in this one. And you can see it kind of humps up just due to the way that they make these guys. And we still have the Made in China sticker and these kind of cheapy tuners. And the pickup in this one is hot as well, 15.24 k ohms. And lastly, this guitar weighs 5 pounds, 10.8 ounces. Let's go ahead and hear how these guys sound. Now that we know all about the Daisy Rock Powerpuff Girls guitars, what are my final thoughts on these things? So let's start with the Powerpuff Girls Heartbreaker. The neck dive on this guitar is crazy. You have to support this neck. And it suffers the same problems that all reduced scale length guitars have when you have like a big 6-foot+ guy playing it. Intonation, it's kind of wonky. But as far as the pickup, it was acceptable. Throw some chorus and some reverb on it and it sounds halfway decent. I mean, this one, it's mainly just for the heart shape and the Powerpuff Girls on here. So strictly collectible in that nature, in my opinion. It's just kind of a cool homage to that movie and the show. But Mojo JoJo, this is where it's at. There's a reason why these things don't come up for sale, because most people that have them, they're happy with them. They don't really want to sell them despite what people might offer. I've had some insane private offers on this guitar because they just don't show up. And it really is just like any type of basic guitar that's kind of Stratocaster-like in shape. But this head bulge is a little bit weird. To make this design better, what they should have done was do like how a Stratocaster has that comfort carve, and just carve his head down. That way, it would still look okay with the graphic. It would just be kind of bent down a little bit. Maybe they could have broke it and exposed his brain, like sometimes that happens. That would have been interesting. But at first, this can definitely be a little bit awkward and uncomfortable. If they would have had that comfort cut, this would have been like the ultimate instrument. And that's something else that's kind of sad, is when you're playing this thing, you know, Mojo kind of gets covered up. But as a display piece, look how beautiful this design is. It just makes me smile, so for that, it's a major win in my book. Now, as far as the pickups, I mean, they've got some decent tonal qualities to them, but nothing to really write home about. This would definitely be worth upgrading and overhauling into something fantastic that's giggable, because people are definitely going to notice the dude that's playing the Mojo JoJo guitar. Oh, and here's a fun little fact that kind of ties this into what we normally talk about. Devo actually wrote the song for Mojo JoJo. You can check that out on YouTube by searching Go Monkey Go. Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed getting to take a look at something a little bit less than normal here today. It's always fun to do something that's outside the realm of what we normally talk about. I've always wanted to try out a Daisy Rock guitar because, you know, they're just kind of one of those things that I've always seen on eBay while looking at other stuff. And I've always wanted to check one out, not thinking too much of them. But based on my experience with these ones, I think they probably are pretty decent guitars for the price. Now, not so much these novelty shapes if you're a tall guy or something like that, but I think as a little girl, this would definitely be influential. They would want to pick them up and have a bunch of fun with them. Because, you know, it's just a fun shape, a heart shape, all those other ones we talked about. I understand the need for the Daisy Rock brand. I think it'd be interesting to try out one of those double cut shapes. As far as cases go for these ones, they actually came stock with a gig bag. The Powerpuff Girls has one that's branded Daisy Rock, as well as Cartoon Network on the top of the neck, and then the Mojo JoJo, it's just branded Cartoon Network. So this was actually an official thing, not a bootleg operation. I think that's what gives these things some collectible value in the future. Because it's not just, you know, guitar collectors and Daisy Rock people, the very few people that do collect those. It's something larger than Daisy Rock. It's Cartoon Network. And honestly, it took me so long to make this video because I really don't want to sell them. They're just so much fun. It took me a while to find them, especially the Mojo JoJo. And I think some of that is just because I can't really get nostalgic over most guitars because guitars didn't come into my life until, you know, way later on. So when they have something to do with a show that I remember growing up, like this guy has some ties to Hi Hi Puffy Yami Yumi as well as Teen Titans. Or like how the Buckethead Les Paul represents Guitar Hero for me. And even though I didn't really watch Powerpuff Girls, I did enjoy one of their video games. So they're just kind of special to me in that fact. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.